All right. Hello. This is Allie with Perception Trainers, Auto the Perception Diet. And today I am super excited to have one of my best friends on my channel with me to talk about friendship. So I've
Hi.
been getting lots of requests lately. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is Ryan. This is Ryan Lewis, and he is on YouTube and he's on Facebook, and
Okay.
he is part of the Lost Boys community, and he's creating a creative space in Hawaii, and he's doing a lot of really cool things. So I'll put all the links where you can find him down below. Um, and I brought him on today because, yeah, number one, because he's one of my best friends, and I just love talking to him, and any excuse that I can like rein him in for a conversation, I will take. And also because I feel like we have had similar yet like and also very different experiences with authentic relationships and finding um, relationships that really serve us and feel good, and friendships that really work for us. And so, like I say, I've been getting lots of questions lately around this idea of friendship and how to find people that really resonate with you, and how to find friendships that really mean something for you, and how, and like, what is tolerable in a relationship, and what you should maybe say, like, look, this is crossing a line, this isn't crossing a line. And I think a lot of, you know, people in this world right now really feel isolated and they feel misunderstood. And there's a part of them that is trying so hard to be what they think they should be in order to be liked. But that just leaves them feeling more and more isolated, and more like if they were to actually be themselves, that people wouldn't like that. But being not who they are makes them feel even more lonely. So, like, where do you go from there? So that's basically what I kind of wanted to talk about today with Ryan. I want us to kind of share our personal stories of how we went from being totally, inauthentic in relationships, essentially, to being completely comfortable being ourselves around people, and what that journey looked like and what it looks like for us now. So that's that. And so
Cool.
say hi, Ryan.
Hey. Okay.
Hey.
I think you've done some awesome things, and already, like just that little introduction gives some essences to where I feel relationships are for me, and my approach to my friendships is kind of this twofold thing that you hit both notes was opening up and letting our guard down and letting our authentic self come out with freedom and not you know just bringing who we want to be in that moment to that relationship. But also, you also touched on like setting our boundaries, kind of. And I think that's a very important thing too, because sometimes that's what's needed. Because no matter how much you try to bring your authentic self, there can be some times where we do this as in our social structures, like we come to a relationship with expectations of where it's been or what our other relationships bring to us, and that could kind of um, make the territory a little bit mucky if we're not, declaring ourselves of where we're at and what we want for the relationship. So I think it's really important. Authenticity doesn't just apply to who we are as an overall being, but who we are in that moment is so important, I feel like. And that's something where I think is going to be a theme for what I'm talking on today is figuring out where we are in the momentary approach to a specific relationship or interaction.
Mm. And I think that that is a huge, amazing point. Is basically what you just said there is, in any real relationship, right? You are not coming as the exact same person you were last time you related to that person, right? Now, today. And that person that you related with last time is probably different than they were last time. And
Absolutely.
so, a huge part of authentic relationships is learning to work with this idea that you've got to tune in and be discerning of what is currently happening, right? In your relationships with yourself and with the other person. So let's back up a little and this talk about this authenticity thing, because I think
Hmm.
this is a huge sticking point for a lot of people, that they really, really, really do not feel safe being themselves.
Right.
Like they really feel like if they're to be vulnerable, because that's essentially what authenticity is. It's
Yeah.
vulnerability. It's exposing who you are and what you are to the people around you, right? Because when we're being inauthentic, all we're really doing is defending ourselves,
Mm.
right? We're building up a wall that says, either I'm not going to expose any of these things that I perceive to be a weakness because I don't want to be attacked for it, or I don't want to expose what I really am, because if someone else rejects what I really am, that's way more painful than someone else rejecting this facade that I'm putting up,
And I
right?
also want to be clear, yeah, and I think that's super important. And I think something that I realize about my friendships, and any aspect of our immediate environment, our current environment, is it's such an indicator of who we are in our relationship with ourselves. It's always the background theme and
Yeah.
what's really going on. And I think it's indicative with our direct relationship with ourselves is that we do the same thing as far as um, allowing ourselves to really see ourselves and then so that's why friendships have such value because they give us this clear characterized indicator of something to relate with and to practice those things, to make those gestures of letting ourselves come out and be seen. And
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful thing. It's something I think in our survival genetics or whatever you want to call it, it tries to put up some guards and barriers from letting those things happen, like not letting weaknesses show through or something, vulnerabilities. But it's so funny because we're always shown time and time again, like when we do let that happen, when we do just like, you know, a moment of just releasing barriers comes through or whatever, that we're just so rewarded. It feels so, you feel the genuineness, you feel like that you can get to deeper levels, even if that's you're dealing with a person that's, you've just met. It can just be amazing that how far you can get in a moment when you just, allow what's there, who you are and who they are to be safe and to show through.
Right. And so, in this way, if you're kind of at a place right now where you feel like you can't be yourself around your friends, that you can't be yourself around the people around you, usually where I think this begins is that it started with a root of you deciding that something about you is not okay, right? And I think that Ryan and I can both speak to this. That, like, for me, especially, like, from a very, very young age, I was a sensitive person. I was an incredibly intense person. I was an incredibly spiritual person, like, from the very beginnings of my life. And those were three just like very strong characteristics of my personality. And all three of those things in the tribe that I was born into were not necessarily seen as good things, right? They were rejected essentially. And so, because I was so young, and because you don't really know any different or any better when you're 1 or 2 or 3 years old, you think, yeah, okay, there must be something wrong with me. And so this is where we start putting up those defenses, right? We start learning to behave in ways that are out of alignment with who we really are, because we think that's going to get us the approval that we need from the people around us, right? And so then we go on this tangent where we start to attract we start to have all these people in our lives who start to like the person we're pretending to be, and therefore have a thing inside of them that really doesn't like the person that we really are, right? And so this kind of starts to build our complex, right? That it's like either I'm going to pretend to be this person that I think I need to be so that everyone will accept me, because if I really were to be my real self, everyone would reject me, right? Because in your worldview, the people around you is everybody.
Right, right,
Does
right, right. Yeah, I understand what you're saying totally.
and does
That's
that resonate with you?
interesting. Definitely, it's really interesting. It's a funny phenomenon. We think we want maybe like I'm trying to speak for myself. It's a good practice. Is in the past, like I thought I wanted what other people had, but realizing now, looking back, it's funny because rather than appreciate the difference between me and said people, I tried to step into that and be a person who was more
Yeah,
popular, gregarious, or a partier or something. Things
yeah,
that really, like, in my nature before that were just like I was a bit more um, artistic. I don't know, reclusive. I spent time with
yeah.
myself a lot, and I developed my creativity, and I played in my imaginary world, and a lot of people, parents get concerned. They think like that's a bad thing, but I mean, looking now, I've almost returned it. I've almost willingly, with like awareness of it, returned to that state because I realize like that is a lot of times what ignites me, and me being authentic when I'm going into these social interactions is me just kind of saying like, hey, yeah, I'm sorry, I've been in my own place for a little while, so you have to like just sit here and be quiet with me for a moment or something. Like, be
Totally.
patient because I'm in a space of my creativity and we gotta warm up. But yeah, sometimes it can be a little bit clunky and awkward, but at least it's real and it feels like who we are. We don't have like these cognitive dissonance or more commonly like identity crisis things
Totally.
going on, which can be definitely more jarring than just a little bit of awkwardness of like bringing who we are to a very new interaction. It's called awkward, but really it's just kind of like it's just new and us like finding our ground in something that's really kind of untemplated, and it's not really there's not so many examples that we're trying to live by. It's just like something that's just like completely intuitive. So it's actually quite rewarding when we embrace that kind of rocky ground or being out on a limb, and
Yeah.
it can be exciting and fun, and it feels fresh and new, and it feels appropriate a lot of times for me, just embracing those types of interactions and relationships.
Yeah. And so yes, I love what you just said there. So basically what you're saying is that you had this very similar kind of thing to me where you were one way when you were born and when you were young, and then it was almost like socialized that you needed to be a different way. And so you went down that path, you did that whole thing, and essentially I don't want to speak for you, but I'll speak for myself, right? I had a whole bunch of friendships where I constantly felt invisible. Like they
Right.
didn't see me, they didn't get me, and if I really were to ever show who I actually was, I was sure they were going to hate it. I was sure they were going to reject me. I was sure that I would just be left alone forever. And and this right, that complex just over and over just like reinforces itself over and over, because again, right, you're constantly in relation with all these people that you're trying to be, right?
Hmm.
Which then again like reinforces this whole idea that you're never going to find that no one else would ever like you if you were to be yourself. So the first step, and this is what Ryan just said, in this finding authentic friendships is healing that relationship with yourself, right? That you, like what you just said there, is that you willingly stepped back into who you were. And it was kind of like, for most people, this is going to feel like a huge risk. And I think that this is the first point that I want to make, is that when we are on the journey to finding authentic friendships, it means you got to take the plunge into re examining who you are and accepting that person, whether or not anyone else likes it. Right. And there's going to be so much inside of you that's going to tell you not to do it. Right. There's
Hmm.
going to be so many things that you've experienced and so many relationships that you've had that say, no, see, anytime I stuck my head out and I was myself, I got it bit off. Right.
And not
I'm
just
going to end up alone. Yeah.
outside,
Go ahead.
all these external forces, all these relationships that were built on possibly more of a facade
Mm-hmm.
come beckoning that they want something back. That's what I've gotten when I like. I just have to realize it's just so many forces at play. There's my intuitive mechanisms inside, and then there's like my my mind and all the constructs of my own identity, and then there's all these forces of this world I built around me, this network of people who may perhaps see me in one way, and it's like it takes some like bold gestures to be like, hey, I'm sorry, or I'm not sorry that I'm, this is who I am, and it might not fit, or might not make sense. It might even seem contradictory to to who I've been or what I've said before. But no matter what, it's like it's what I'm feeling and what's true to me right now. And if it's so cool to do that. It's so cool to realize that level of power. Like at any moment, we can do that. We can just swivel on a dime and just like say, yeah, I know what I said. I know what I told you, I know what you think, kind of, but it's not valid. It's not really appropriate anymore. And this is more importantly, this is what is appropriate to me right now, and what feels right. So, I
Yeah.
mean, whatever that means to you right now, or to me as I speak it, but yeah, I think that's really important for me to constantly check in with.
Hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
So I want to just give some little examples of how I started to like kind of heal my relationship with myself and how that started to draw in authentic relationships for me. So back when I was like 20 years old, um, my sister, my boyfriend at the time, and I all moved to Vancouver from Calgary. So Vancouver, if you don't know, is this really hippy dippy, like spiritual yoga. Everyone there is a Reiki master and a psychic. And I was moving from like Calgary, which is basically like the epicenter of the oil industry in Canada, right? So I'm moving from this society that tells me that like you go and you get a job downtown and you wear nice clothes and you drink on the weekends. And that is what is appropriate. And inside, I'm this little like vegan raw foodist fairy who just wants to talk about like angels, right? So of course, I think I'm never going to find anyone that loves me. No, everyone's going to think I'm a freak, like blah blah blah, right? So we moved to Vancouver, and I ended up like within the first couple of weeks of being there, I like went to a psychic. And this was something I had like never done before, and she like just like poured out all this stuff for me. She's like, you're someone like me, like you're supposed to be like doing this kind of work and da 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 da. And it was like for the first time in so long, something inside of me like took a breath. And I want to say that I was like horrified of like what my boyfriend was going to think about me doing this, right?
But at the
Because
same moment, you were taking a breath like of relief, but you were also scared. Isn't that funny?
yes, like it was like a breath of relief. Exactly. There's like that part of me that was like, "Oh my god, finally."
The
Right?
description of it.
And then
Feeling.
right, and then there's that other part of me that's like, "Holy shit, what did I just do?" Right? And I kind of just slowly started to open myself up to these things that interested me. Right? And I just kind of had to say, "You know what? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go do this thing." And people around me might think I'm crazy, and people around me might think I'm ridiculous, but at the end of the day, I would rather, like, I guess what I'm saying is, I kind of got to a place after kind of just following my nudges. I call them nudges, like following my little, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I'd like to pursue. I have always had a fascination with this thing and I never let myself pursue it because blah blah blah, and I'm just gonna let myself do it. After doing that a couple of times, I got to a point where I was like, you know what? It feels so good to pursue these things that actually matter to me and that actually resonate with me, that I'm okay if everyone else rejects me and I end up being completely alone for the rest of my life, because I'd rather be completely alone and be myself than be having all these relationships where I feel like I can't be who I am. Have you had that experience?
Definitely. And yeah, that's so cool I think like thinking about like fear is your friend. Like I know people say that, and it's like when you think about those moments where like there's that excitement because you realize you're onto something, and then you're also scared because you know that it means like it has big implications that of
Yeah.
change, of letting things go. And that's what I think I've changed my relationship a lot through that, through those mechanisms, because I think the excitement is really the more powerful thing. Like I
Hmm.
said, the line between like fear and anticipation is super, like anxiety and anticipation, anxiety and excitement, like they're just like go hand in hand. And so that's why those feelings of anxiety and fear and things that can kind of like weigh on someone, like I've kind of a lot of times can like transmute my relationship with them, that like when they come on, I'm like realize like, oh shoot, something good is happening, some kind of transformation is on the brink if I so choose it. And
Yes.
yeah, so I really I tend to like to really, those are points that are they're good indicators too. Those moments of that those emotions coming through, fear and excitement coming through. And I'm like, oh shoot, what does this mean? And we can logicize, we can put pen to paper and like and say like, okay, let's do a Venn diagram, so to speak, or something like, all right, what's happening here? Which like, and we can if we're a logical person, we can weigh that out, or we can just like take a step right then and there towards whatever it is. I mean, sometimes it's into the safer zone, or it could be on a way out on a limb. But yeah, those are really cool periods, and I definitely resonate with what you're saying. I love those moments when the universe speaks.
Mhm. So I think kind of what we're saying here is if you're feeling that urge to find authentic relationships and your relationships right now are reflecting back to you that you can't be yourself in those relationships, right? That's a reflection of all of the things that you've rejected about yourself. I think that's first and foremost. Your relationships are showing you where you have said it's not okay for you to be who you are,
Most
where
definitely.
you have decided that you're not safe, where you have decided you are not good enough. And that's just being reflected back to you. So it's not actually the relationships
Sure.
that we need to blame. It's like the relationship is just the reflection. So
Uh,
from that point, you just start following those little nudges because I just really do not believe that anyone's authentic self ever dies or ever goes away. It's always going to be pulling you. So you're going to have inclinations of what to do. As soon as you start looking, you're going to be like, yeah, I want to go, to that pottery class. Or I'm just really interested in reading this book. Or, I've been listening to this person on YouTube and, they're way out from what my normal clique believes, but I just like, I'm so drawn to what they're saying. Right. And so you just start to like follow those little curiosities, right? And you start to see that you don't die when you take the risk into stepping into your authenticity. And I think you do that enough times, and then you'll get to that place that Ryan just talked about there, where you feel that fear. And instead of it scaring the shit out of you, you recognize it as you stepping deeper into yourself. And you will get to a point where you want to lean into that fear, right? You will get to the point where you've been through it enough times that every time you stepped out and every time you figured out something new about yourself, it actually equals something good. And it will start to feel safer and safer and safer to do so. Does that make sense?
yeah, and I think in order to practice
And
this, it's
then you,
so for myself, it's like what comes about is I feel like these things I feel new and I feel like almost we're a little bit scared or embarrassed by is like I'll take it and I'll confront it first, obviously on my own and like in my own space and with myself, um, and feel it out, and then like I don't even focus on like like you said, like we're getting into new media or watching and reading or practicing new things that we're not really that we feel funny to do at first, so we just do it by
yeah,
ourselves, and then we don't even have to focus on like what if someone finds out about this about me or something like that, or like you're a bit embarrassed that you're doing it and you don't, won't necessarily want to share it, but the more like we do and try it on and it like and step into it, I feel like it just comes naturally that like these things that I normally would be like, it's a little weird that I'm doing this. I think I'm just gonna do it alone. Like eventually it'll just come out that I'll just like, hey, yeah, like I'm doing this now. It's really cool and fun. Like I'll just end up like wanting to share because it's like
Yeah,
it's kind of like it becomes, part of me in that to that level that I'm ready to share it in my relationships. And a lot of times, people appreciate the hell out of it when you realize you've already tried it on and you realize it fits well.
exactly. And I think that
Yeah,
that's like an amazing point. Exactly. Like you're right. Like the first time I went to a psychic, it's not like I was posting that on Facebook.
right.
I wasn't like
Exactly.
talking about past lives. I wasn't like talking about all this like stuff, right? Even though it totally resonated with me, I wasn't like sharing it. It was like really, really an internal thing. And I would even say that this went on for several years where it was very, very internal. It was very, very me just getting used to allowing me to be me, right? And so
Mhm.
my external world didn't change too much, right? Like I got some new friends and I got some new relationships that felt much closer to alignment than my previous ones, right? But again, it was to the degree that I was comfortable with myself. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in accord. I mean, yeah, it's so funny. And allowing these relationships just come about in whatever way they can is important too for me. Like, I realize that sometimes it's like it's not so it's way out of black and white. It's a whole spectrum of how these friendships take place. Sometimes friendships, honestly, like they'll hit their scope and peak of value in a short window, or it could it could be something that lasts a lifetime, so to speak. But I mean, just like allowing those things to be okay, like that friendship was representative of a phase that may or may not return, and not trying to clutch to every connection for me as like as okay, we formed this and now we have it for life, BFF. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's like you hit these strides in these windows for me where it's like I'm in a totally different space and it's like it's just not appropriate, and we'll try to push through it, and I think it'll just compromise like for me my energy, like trying to be like just because there's a pattern there, like trying to clutch to it rather than just like taking it on intuition and inspiration where it is. Like I find myself making so many new friends all the time, and sometimes like it'll just be like a cool little window of like a couple days or a couple weeks or a couple months where we're chums, we're glued at the hip, and then like it's just like very naturally we like go our own ways and maybe keep in contact or maybe we regain contact, but no matter what, like that value is so strong, like that like kind of like it just integrates at a certain period, and like sometimes we could just that's who we are now, and that relationship is like always gonna have like a good like connotation and reflection for us that when we tune into it, even if like it doesn't stay constant. So yeah,
Totally.
friendships are super cool, and I think a lot more dynamic and organic than sometimes our mind lets us allows us to facilitate. But the more I realize this, I'm just yeah letting those things be as transient or as long lasting as they can.
Mhm. So that's this is an interesting thing that you just brought up. So now it kind of inspired me that I would like to talk about kind of how our friendship has unfolded because I think it's like a perfect example of everything that you just said.
Yeah.
So so way back, so 2013,
Sounds
is
right.
that it was 2013 or 2014. So so yeah, okay, I'm just gonna like I moved out of Calgary in 2010. And basically, that was like the most shut down I'd ever been as a human being, I think. I was just like a zombie at that point. And so then I spent 3 years in Vancouver, like reconnecting with my like spiritual hippy dippy side and like going to yoga classes, working at yoga studios, doing my Reiki training, going to psychics, like just like really in a way immersing myself in it, but in a lot of ways like not immersing myself in it, like still resisting it a lot, still really trying to be an analytical person, still really trying to be like right and proper and pay my taxes and like be someone my dad would still like, essentially. And then in 2000, okay, so yeah, in 2012, Marcus and I went to Thailand. And I feel like that's where something like broke for me. Like I feel like I had thrown myself so far out of my comfort zone. I had thrown myself so far outside of anything that I'd ever experienced before. And I feel like it just, yeah, something inside me there was like, look, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep smoshing myself. I can't keep making myself small, dealing with my eating disorder, all this stuff, right? Like it all kind of came to the surface and it was like, no, you have to stop this, right? So I came back from Thailand, lived in Vancouver for another 9 months, basically purging, just like literally like getting rid of all of our stuff, like my relationships. And like I say, like my relationships were just totally reflective of this, right? Like getting rid of friends, like letting go of things. And it wasn't even anything that I was doing. It was just, again, the relationships were the reflection, right? Like they were just reflecting what I was going through. And so I was losing friends, gaining friends, all of this stuff was happening. And then we moved to Thailand in 2013. We lived there for 4 months. And then in that time, I like basically like I quit a job, got a new job. Like really, like I say, I was stepping more and more into myself. And all of this stuff was just unfolding for me. And then we moved to San Francisco in 2013. And we went to the Woodstock Fruit Festival 2014. And that's where Ryan and I first met. And my very, very first memory of hanging out with Ryan was we were all just kind of like laying on the grass, and one of the other people was just like standing there doing something kind of ridiculous. And all of us were kind of being very like spiritual and mature. And I just like turned to Ryan and I started just like making fun of this guy. I was like, can you believe what this person is doing right now? Like, can we just like step back and realize what's happening? And I feel like that's when Ryan like looked at me and he's like, okay, you're not just one of those like flaky, ridiculous spiritual people. Like, I can like you. And I feel like that was like the first time you and I connected. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that moment, but
Okay.
it sounds right because I remember meeting you and I hadn't heard about you before that, but I remember just like I remember I think it was Megan was like, "Hey, have you met Ellie Washington yet?" And I was like, "No, who's that?" And she's just like, "Oh yeah, she's like it's really legit. Like she's like remember she's part of Young and Raw. She like had built all this stuff and she's on it." I'm like, "Oh, cool." Like, and
Yeah.
then I think I probably already said hi to you because you were working in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Um, it's, oh yeah, she's cool. I already like kind of met her,
Yeah.
and then like I just took you for like this like super sincere like person, and then like like you like it's like we talked about earlier. It's like those moments where kind of the veil drops, all of like these implications of who we are and who we have to be like come down, and we just like make fun of somebody,
Yeah, exactly.
make fun of ourselves or whatever thing
Yeah.
that takes place when we get playful and it's like or we get just like vulnerable and like oh what if you never know when you could turn and make fun of someone to someone else and they'd be like this person's just mean
Yeah. Yeah.
or someone can laugh with you so it's like it is going out on a limb doing something
Totally.
presentation. um but yeah we have since then we've made fun of each other and ourselves and probably lots of people. And the highlight word is fun because it has been fun. And I've sat here cracking up on our chats so many times. And we've
Yeah.
gone through, like I was saying before, like we've gone through waves. Like there's times when we're not talking so much, but there's times when we're like talking every single day. At least chatting video or call once a week, if not more than that. And yeah, we've been in contact pretty consistently since that point.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
like what I kind of wanted to say about that is like as you were stepping more and more into your creative thing and you're just like the space that you're creating there and like living in Hawaii and like all of the stuff that you were doing, And I was starting to even more step into like what I was doing, YouTube videos, blah, 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 blah. I feel like that's when we really started connecting, and we really started to be somewhere where each other could just like off gas in a way, and
Yeah.
also just like express what's going on and bounce ideas off each other. And like I say, like the more authentic you and I are becoming, so the more comfortable you and I are becoming with ourselves, I feel like the closer you and I are getting. And
Yeah.
like I say, like this is like a huge reflection. So like when Ryan says, like he shows up to each interaction and sometimes he needs a minute to like come back down to earth from where he is. I feel like I am in tune enough with him and in tune enough with myself that like we naturally create that space. And it's not even
Mm.
like he has to like tell me about it. It's like I
Right,
can
right, right.
sense. And so, and again, like I'm not putting him in a box that because we were laughing and joking last time that we have to be laughing and joking this time we talk, or because we were talking about, like deep soul childhood issues last time, that we're going to do that this time. You see what I'm saying? Like we are able to meet each other where we're at. And I think again, because that is a reflection of the fact that, oh, sorry. And I think that's because that's a reflection
It's,
of the fact that we are willing to meet ourselves where we're at, right? Like I am
yeah.
comfortable with myself on the days when things are heavy and when things are a little bit, crazy or whatever, and the emotions that are coming up for me, I'm okay with that. Which means when Ryan is going through something like that, I can meet him there and vice
Right.
versa. So again,
Yeah, and I
our
find
relationship,
naturally,
yeah, go ahead.
I naturally, and you too, also, well, I mean, sometimes we're just like practicing things with each other and levels of vulnerability and levels of
Mm-hmm.
candor and new ways of speaking. It's just like, we set that precedence early on to just meet each other in the moment. And it's like, so it keeps facilitating and, you know, nurturing that safe space in the relationship, which is so cool and something like, I mean, it can be challenging to bring together relationships, ones that are built on patterns, that are built on consistency, or built on, expectations or certain levels of speaking. But those are the real. I mean, those other ones can be real good places because they take a bit stronger of a gesture, like to implement and integrate like these values for ourselves in ones where they're maybe not so met. But the ones that are met are such beautiful safe spaces to like try things on and really like speak and I really appreciate that about our relationship because sometimes like I'll tell you like I'll just fire things out like that I would normally like otherwise would write down on paper because they're just like inspirations coming through they're not necessarily meant for other ears, but I know that you appreciate them and that you at least like you'll offer yourself as a person to receive that kind of stuff, which is um
Mhm.
which is amazing to have that kind of relationship.
And again, like I really believe that at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that I'm super comfortable being who I am. Ryan is super comfortable being who Ryan is. And so when we come together, I'm super comfortable with who Ryan is. And Ryan is super
Mm.
comfortable with who I am because I'm not seeing a deficiency in myself. He's not seeing a deficiency in himself. And therefore, we don't see deficiencies in each other. So I really feel
Mm.
like essentially I can express anything that I'm going through to Ryan. And I don't expect that he's going to judge me. And I don't expect that he's going to tell me I'm wrong and I'm bad and I'm stupid. He's just going to be kind of like a landing zone. And I feel like it's the same back. But again, like I want to just kind of emphasize that, like, at least for me, it took me like a good solid 5 years of really
Yeah.
just like tearing down those boundaries within myself that told me that who I was wasn't okay, and that what I was
Mm.
feeling wasn't okay, what I was thinking wasn't okay, and just really saying, okay, this is what's arising. That's okay. This is what's arising.
Totally.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And learning that like
So
there's
is it's like it's actually absolutely paramount because then we understand like what how it all works. Like when we really watch ourselves and sit with ourselves, we realize like the fluctuation is massive of our emotional scale, and it's just like there's waves and peaks and crests and ebbs and flows that like that happen inside just so naturally. It's how nature works, and and to bring anything else to our relationship expectations of otherwise of some kind of consistency or that the person you see today is going to be the person you saw yesterday or wherever whenever is kind of absurd if we the more we watch ourselves and the more we watch nature the more we realize that everything's always in fluctuation. So it's so cool and exciting to bring that to like step into an interaction and not know what it's going to be. Like,
Yeah.
when we write each other, sometimes it's just a few lines, one off, or sometimes like I'm sitting there for hours, like cracking up, or so enthralled that like we're just like hitting these like deep, philosophical like tangents. It's like whatever waves we may ride that day, we're not really calling the shots. It's kind of like, yeah, like going out and surfing and seeing what the ocean's gonna bring. It's like you really don't know.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And I think that this is one of my favorite parts about an authentic relationship is that like and I aren't like we're gonna meet every Thursday at 4:30 and we're gonna video chat and blah blah blah, right? Like because we tend to always magically, but maybe it's not magical, maybe it's just nature, meet each other on the days when we're on the same wavelength. So we have these
Right.
really deep philosophical conversations because both of us were already there. Or we have these really ridiculous conversations because both of us were already there. Right? And
Oh, I feel like, 'cause I'm feeling like this, and you'll be like, yeah, totally. I'll be like, oh, okay, cool.
yeah,
You'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. I'll go deal
yeah,
with it by myself.
yeah. But usually it's so funny. Usually it will be like we like have gone away and like not talked for a couple of days. And then you'll come to me and you'll be like, yeah, so I'm thinking this thing. And I'll be like, holy shit. That's exactly what I was just gonna say to you. Right? Or I'll be like, man, Ryan, I've just been like really like going through this thing. And you'll be like, I literally have just been doing that too. And so that's what I'm saying is like these authentic relationships are, and I know, okay, this is going to sound the cheesiest thing ever. They are like nature. It's just like a rhythm and a flow, and you don't have to force it. And it's just like when people say, like, it's natural, like, I feel like it's just natural to communicate with you. I really think that that's just a reflection of the fact that you're allowing yourself to be who you are. The other person is allowing themselves to be who they are. And then you're meeting each other there. And it's this like awesome natural thing that happens that makes everybody in the interaction feel awesome. Yeah?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean, it's like you said, it's like it's tough to make it sound as like as genuine as we're speaking of it for me, like nature's such an amazing indicator. Even like I don't have to go out and watch it. But if you just feel into like the energy of a tree or a forest or the ocean or whatever it may be, and just feel like just the just the amount of just like it's just like there's essences that are captured always, and it's just like being whatever motion is happening. If the wind's blowing, the tree's moving. If not, then it's stoic and still. But it's like it's never the same. Like the branch one branches are twisted, some are straight. It's like it's there's so many lessons around that we can take note of, and none of them are just like I'm this character always. I'm like
Right.
Doug Funny or something. Like I'm like
Yeah.
always just like in, and I'm always the same person. Like yeah, it doesn't really ever work that way unless we try to force it that way. But then again, it's like it can be really jarring to our internal mechanisms, and it can compromise our health and our mental state. I
Mhm.
think that's what I found at least. So the more I allow myself to be a channel of whatever is arising, it's like, and you know the when you get to step out into the world and you start to interact with people, there's a lot more variables involved. So it takes a lot more practice and empowerment of ourselves to bring that, like this, to face whoever we may run into, whatever situations we may encounter, and say like, okay, wow, well, this is what's being presented to me, but it's not always because I need to I need to be with it. Sometimes it's like it's just showing us that, okay, this is a moment to declare ourselves and to say, I'm not, this is not where I'm at right now, and just to like take a step in another direction. And that's where the barriers come in, I think. And when we get a call that someone's in the neighborhood, or we run into someone that really wants to chat, we have to, you know, exercise a little bit of our creative empowerment and say like, not right now, or you know, I'm sorry, this is not where I'm at, so I'm gonna continue on. Like that's just because it's there doesn't mean we have to roll with it. But sometimes it's all intuitive and what feels right.
Totally. And I think that, yeah, this is like a really important kind of avenue to take here is like, at no point should a relationship be abusive, right? Like, at no point does an authentic relationship require that you tear each other down or that you make each other feel really bad about something that you're doing, or you see what I'm saying? Like, I think that,
Even
okay,
further,
and
I think
yeah, go ahead.
that's like, and for me, energy is so key, and I keep trying to watch that. I mean, other people, I think emotions play more of a part, but for me, I'll notice my energy dipping, and sometimes the other person is just talking. It's not necessarily like they're being abusive or anything, but it's just not where I'm at, like where and I just have to, if I notice my energy dipping, I have to respond to that and be true and like see where is like when is something building me in like an inspiring excitement and like building my energy, and when is something kind of taking it away. And it's there's no real rule of thumb on what things do that when, but um but just like noticing it in the moment that I
Right.
am flowing with this, and this is I am responding well to this, or something in me is being repelled to this. Feel like that magnet effect of where we're being met, and where it's telling us maybe it's time to step in a new direction.
Totally. And that's where I think boundaries come in, right? Where it's like, if you're just someone's dumping ground, that's
Mhm.
not necessarily a role you need to play if that doesn't feel authentic for you, right? Some people are totally cool with being the place where their friends go to just like off gas. Some
Right,
people,
right,
that's not something
right,
that resonates with them. And it's like, you need to decide for yourself, like, be discerning, be like, am I just doing this because I want them to approve of me? Or am I doing this because it feels like something authentic for me? Right. And then
right.
same thing with like calling each other out. Like, I feel like Ryan and I absolutely call each other to be better. Right. We absolutely say, like, hey, dude, I think you're kind of playing out a pattern here that you've done many, many times. Maybe we need to look at that. Right. But it's always done with the understanding that like the other person knows what's best for them. And we're not there to like police each other, or
Yeah.
mm, it's not my responsibility to get Ryan to notice something about himself, and it's not Ryan's
Mhm.
responsibility to get me to understand something about myself. It's like, I fully trust that Ryan's on his path and Ryan fully trusts that I'm on mine. And so what we share with each other is often just like, maybe you want to think about this thing, right? But it's never with the
Mhm.
intention of like, I'm gonna fix you, or there's something wrong with you that needs to be augmented. And I think if people are coming at you like that, that's a place where a boundary can go up, right? If someone's coming up to you saying that they're gonna fix you, or like, with
Mhm.
that kind of energy that there's something wrong with you that needs to be fixed, that's totally not in alignment. Whereas I'm just gonna like say something and you do with it what you will, that's a completely different thing. Would you agree with that?
I do, and but again, it's like it's so funny. It's like there are no rules even for that. Like sometimes someone will come up to me to offer me words of critique or something, and I'll be like, "Oh, cool, this is good. Like I didn't even see this," and like it'll like it might like again my energy will like respond to that, like, oh, this is good. This is a point for me to like take this and like, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna grow from this. Or sometimes it's just like, okay, you're projecting on me, like I don't, I'm
Yeah.
gonna step back. Like it's totally intuitive, or
Mm.
like you said, like a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes like to be that shoulder to cry on, like I think it's beautiful in that moment. Or sometimes it's just like, again, it's like it feels more like projection, and it's just like you're not like I'm not even a part of this interaction. It's just like you could be doing this to a cardboard cutout of me, and it's not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not
Right.
providing any more. But it totally depends on that particular moment. And it's funny. I think for me, like sometimes it's these moments where I'm like I let it get into my field, and I have to like it's a little bit harder to be like, okay, stop. I'm gonna have to leave, or you're gonna have to leave, or something like that's a little bit harder than sometimes we can forecast it. Like it can be we can get a text or
Mhm.
something, hey, you around, and we can feel it that demo. It's a little bit subtler, but the more we hone these mechanisms, I feel like I could be like, oh wait, no, this doesn't feel like it's gonna necessarily. I could be wrong, but my voice is telling me that this is it's probably not going to facilitate me, and there's something more valuable that I want to spend my time doing right now. And sometimes like you could be in such a high place that you don't like you get ahead even of that text like and you're just like that's not even that's not even part of like entering your field right now because you're
Yeah.
already even more ahead of it. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
that's a fun part of these intuitive responses
Yeah.
because they can almost be like they can get to the point where they're almost like psychic in the sense of like you're dealing with it, you know, before it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, so again, right, this kind of question of like, what constitutes a healthy relationship? What is something I should allow? What is something I shouldn't allow? What are things that are okay? What are things that are not okay? Basically, what Ryan is saying, and I would completely agree with him, is that depends on your discernment. And it's different in every situation, and there are no hard and fast rules. So, again, it comes down to you being connected with yourself enough that you can hone in on your own intuition and say, okay, this is helpful for me. This is valuable for me, right? Because relationships are going to challenge us and they're going to push us and they're going to grow us. And that is the point of that, right? No one ever said that your relationships are supposed to be just like this perfect, flowing, nothing is ever annoying, nothing, like it never grows you, it never pulls anything out of you. It's like, no, that's what relationships are there for. They're a reflection, right? So it's
Yeah.
you're using your discernment and your intuition and your, okay, is this something I need to learn and grow from right now? Is this an expansion point? Is this showing me something that I, bump up against all the time that needs to maybe shift inside of me? Or is this a boundary? And again, it's just going to
Mm.
be case by case, situation by situation. And the more you connect in with who you are authentically, the more you're going to have access to that information. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think it's important to frame this, even though it's kind of the same discussion, is we've been kind of framing it around receiving of energy, but I think also like in this like growth of our own awareness is feeling out like how our energy is being like received and responded to because that's something that's so important to me. Like even if I'm like in a good mood and I'm talking about things that excite me, sometimes people just aren't in that place, and there's subtle indicators you can feel like if they're being
Yeah.
received. And I don't want to be. I also don't want to be the person projecting. So I want to just like if I'm like like that's all about nurturing that atmosphere. So we tune
Yeah.
into like to both sides, how our internal mechanisms are working, and the indicators that we're able to observe, like externally in the people we're dealing with, and the feelings we're getting from the responses, and that's how we continue to evolve not just ourselves, but this whole social structure and the structure of relationships by really being more empathic with each other. And it's like
Right.
it's a fun thing to practice. Um, yeah, so it's like for me, it just comes down to like it can be as subtle as just I mean, it's just like a phone or text chat. It's just like you can just feel it very subtly and how you're getting responses or just
Yeah.
it's just like whatever your intuition's telling you, or if you're in person, obviously there's a lot of indicators of body language and eye contact and things like that. But I mean, it all cues back to just generally our awareness, and it's like that's kind of the most general speaking of what I feel like we're talking about working on in terms of relationship.
Absolutely. And I think what you said there is just perfect. It's like really, as you develop your own authenticity within yourself, that's how you develop that sensitivity to other people. Like I really think they go hand in hand, like it happens at the same time. As you're becoming more aware of your own authenticity, more aware of who you are, those defenses are coming down, right? You're not so worried about how do I make myself approvable to these people? How do I fit in? Da, 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 da. You're just being yourself. Then all of a sudden that frees up all this mind space for you to pick up on what's going on with other people, right? And be able to, again, authentically relate. So it's not just about where you're at, but it's about where they're at too. Yeah?
Our relationship.
Yeah. Okay. So we've been talking for a long time, so let's wrap this up. So basically, I
Cool.
think to sum up, we're saying authentic relationships require an authentic person. And that the more you learn how to be okay with who you are by following those little nudges, following those little curiosities, allowing yourself to, in your own private time first, start to explore these things that you know are authentic to you, but that you're afraid of doing because you think your tribe is going to reject you. The more you connect in with yourself, all of a sudden, the people that don't fit into that are going to naturally start moving out of your life. And the people that do are going to naturally start moving in. And then from that place, you start to, again, continue to develop that personal awareness, continue to develop that internal sense of who you are and what's authentic to you. And you start to develop an intuition and a capacity to authentically relate with other people. And it might be scary, and taking these steps might be hard, but it's worth it. So that would
Yeah.
be my summation. How would you sum it up?
Um, I just think, in addition to that, which is a very good summation, is to say that I feel like it's all just, I mean, if I like to take the perspective that it's all just levels of the same experience, and like all this is really just what comprises experience. Like the internal, the external, the relationships, our own personal dealings, our view with ourselves, they're all just like, they all contribute to this holistic thing that is us, our experience, and like our personal our life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, just to realize that they're all levels and, they're all indicative of each other. So, our environment is and our relationships are so clearly indicative of, for me, of who I am. So, to review my relationships, to review my surroundings, to look at the place I'm living and the interactions that comprise my day is such
Yeah.
an indicator of just the tone of the day, the tone of me
Yes.
and where I'm at. So, that's perfectly okay. And just to realize that gestures are so, for me, are so important. When I make a gesture, and especially the ones that are sometimes like a bit cause that kind of anxious, exciting feeling to come up, those tend to be like really good evolutionary points
Yeah.
for me in like facing something. And if it's, I mean, it can happen on our own, but when it happens in interaction, it is still something that I feel like I'm working on for myself and for like the whole of our vote for where we want humanity to go is saying like either yes, this is exactly what I want, or no, I'm not taking this shit right now. I'm going to do something else. But like
Yeah.
always just stepping towards what feels right, what I want, and what is appropriate.
Yes.
But no template, no reference point, just whatever the only reference is the intuitive moment.
Exactly. And just allowing yourself to go on that journey. That there
Mm.
really are no rules about it, and there's no way that it has to unfold. And if you
Yeah,
let go of that, it's all so much easier,
beautiful
right?
creative. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So thank you, Ryan. You're awesome. I'm so happy that you did this with me and that we were like, yeah, maybe we'll just like do 40 minutes, and if we're done earlier, we'll shut it down earlier. And I was like, yeah, right.
We're at, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think we're at over an hour now. So
Okay.
yeah. if you want to find
Anyone?
Ryan, I put all of his. Oh,
Amazing.
sorry. Go ahead.
I just say thank anybody who tuned in the song. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was really cool. So, yeah, find Ryan down below. I put all of his links down there. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got Facebook. He's got all that great stuff. Um, and yeah, I newly started my Patreon page. So if you want more conversations like this, more community like this, more authentic relationships like this, I would love to have you over there. Find me on Facebook, on Instagram, all that stuff's down below as well. Like, share if you thought this was helpful. Leave us your comments. We want to hear everything you have to say. And thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Uh,
All right.